Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammadin nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barik wa sallim. We are supposed to start with Surah Yusuf today, but there were about 3 or 4 verses left from the last surah that we were reading, that is Surah Hud. So I think we'll first finish this the verses from Surah Hud and then move on. Here, I'll read from verse number 120, Surah Hud. وَكُلًّا نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَجَاءَكَ فِي هَٰذِهِ الْحَقُّ وَمَوْعِظَةٌ وَذِكْرَىٰ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That is, we relate to you the accounts of the messengers in order to strengthen your heart. Through them has come to you the truth as well as advice and a reminder for the believers. Now, the reason for all these various stories of prophets in the Quran is mentioned here. We relate to you the accounts of the messengers in order to strengthen your heart. Because this is a Makki surah, and in Makkah, Prophet ﷺ as well as all his followers were really treated very badly. They were persecuted to the extreme. So here, God is consoling Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and saying that we are mentioning all these stories in order to strengthen your heart, to make you firm in your resolve. And also, at that time, everyone did not know about these prophets and stories, especially their details. So this sort of confirms the stories of those prophets, their names and all the details of their lives, which are mentioned in the Quran and also the previous generations. Also, the Prophet used to get extremely dejected at the attitude of the unbelievers, especially since they were of his own nation and included his relatives and his friends. So the Quran related the stories of the former prophets, which all of them had a sort of a common strain, similar to the experience of the Prophet ﷺ himself. These stories were also illustrations of the moral truth, which was being presented to the prophets as well as to the later followers. And therefore the purpose was to console him and to give him courage in his extremely difficult task and to strengthen his heart and also the hearts of the believers of all time. And here in verse number 121, وَقُلْ لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ اعْمَلُوا عَلَى مَكَانَتِكُمْ إِنَّا عَامِلُونَ. That is, say to those who do not believe, do what you please and we will do what we think right. Now this is sort of like saying, okay, like if this all my teaching is not having any positive effect on you, then you go on doing what you think is right and we will go on doing what we think is right. These are like warnings to the Makkan idolaters. وَانْتَظِرُوا وَإِنَّا مُنْتَظِرُونَ. That is, wait and see, we are waiting too. وَلِلَّهِ غَيْبُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَإِلَيْهِ يُرْجَعُ الْأَمْرُ كُلُّهُ فَاعْبُدْهُ وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَيْهِ وَمَا رَبُّكَ بِغَافِلٍ عَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. To God belong the hidden secrets of the heaven and the earth, and to him everything has to return. So worship him and have full trust in him. Your Lord is not unaware of what you do. So here it is being mentioned that God understands and he comprehends all the secrets of the heavens and the earth, which most people have no inkling about. And everything has to return to him. That means that a day will come when everyone will have to stand in front of God and be accountable for his beliefs and his deeds. So worship him and have full trust in him. Your Lord is not unaware of what you do. So the prophets as well as the followers of all time are asked to busy themselves with the worship of God all the time, having full trust in him. That is tawakkul. We come across this word quite often in the Quran. Tawakkul is full trust. Since God is aware of everyone's actions and reactions, he is sure to reward the believers and turn the tables on the persecutors. Now, one little interesting point I think we did not mention last time was in about verse number 118 of the same Surah Hud. If your Lord had pleased, he would have made all humanity one nation, but they will always disagree. And they will disagree means that there will be, sectarian differences and religious differences. And it is also said that this choice that is given to human beings to be able to follow whatever path they want to follow is also a divine mercy. It's a form of divine mercy. So a very interesting remark has been made by Rashid Rida, who has this tafsir called Al-Manara. He says all intellectual progress would have been ruled out if everyone was following the same, just like all the other creatures, like for example the animals. They do not think about what they have to do. They just know by instinct, they know what to do. So they do not have any kind of intellectual progress. So all intellectual progress would have been ruled out, like the bees and the ants. They just know what they have to do. And the spiritual life of human beings, if they had no choice, would have been like the angels. This is also very interesting because angels understand what God is asking them to do and they understand what their duties are, but they do not choose their path. They just obey. So if human beings had no choice, then they would also be like the bees and the ants and other creatures, and their spiritual life would have been like the angels. So now we come to the end of Surah Hud, and we have now to move on to Surah Yusuf, which is the 12th Surah in the Quran. And last time I had suggested that since we're still on the 12th Surah, we can try to memorize the numbers of the surahs. This will also help when you want to refer to something, and if you know the number of the surah, then you can find it more easily. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We all know that Yusuf is the name of one of the most beloved prophets of God. Beloved by God and beloved by people. This surah is also Makki. It was revealed in Makkah, and most of the surah relates the story of Prophet Yusuf. And unlike most of the other surahs in the Quran, this surah has one main topic, and that is the story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. While in other surahs you will find that many different topics are mentioned in one surah or chapter. Yusuf in the biblical tradition is known as Joseph. So this is the story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, and it's called by the Quran the Ahsanul Qasas. That means it is the best of stories, or it is the most beautiful of all stories. This reminds me that if there is somebody who is trying to understand the Quran, read it with its meaning and its tafsir, its commentary, and if that person says, I find it difficult to read the Quran but because there is so much mention of punishment and hell, so to that person one can suggest, try starting with Surah Yusuf, because this is a pure and a beautiful story. So the people of the book, that is the Bani Israelis, often tested Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's knowledge by asking him questions about the former prophets. And even when he did not have much information about these prophets, then he would receive a revelation in answer to their queries. And in this case, it is said that the Bani Israelis asked the people of Makkah, the Quraysh, to ask Prophet Muhammad what he knew about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam or about Joseph. So here the Prophet ﷺ is consoled with the prediction that like Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's brothers, the Quraysh of Makkah would one day submit to him totally. And all the obstructions and distractions which distract from the path to the truth are clearly described here. Now we know that Prophet Joseph was the son of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam was known as Jacob in the biblical tradition. The father loved him dearly, and also he loved him more than his other sons. And he is also the grandson of Prophet Ishaq, that is Isaac. He was an exceptionally good-looking person physically and an extremely pure person spiritually. His physical beauty, it seems, was a reflection of his spiritual beauty and purity. And his 10 older jealous step-brothers were always trying to harm him and to remove him from their father's presence. The story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's patience and the trust in God in the face of severe trials is very beautifully related here. The faith, piety, patience and courage needed to move on, depicted in the actions of Prophet Yusuf, serve as an example to all those who travel on the difficult spiritual path. And his character also shines as a role model for all young males, especially, most of whom would have found it difficult to resist the seductive charms of the opposite sex. At the administrative level, Prophet Yusuf seems to have introduced the system of rationing of food, which even in modern history has been used as a means of a fair distribution of food in times of scarcity, such as war, etc. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Ra, Tilka Ayatul Kitabil Mubin. Alif Lam Ra is, we know, are the huruf al-muqatta'at, which are, the word has been translated as separate letters, disjointed letters, and they're also known as the mystic letters, because no one knows their meaning. And they do not form a recognized word because there are no consonants in these huruf muqatta'at. They're also known as the openings. And they appear at the beginning of 1/4 of the total surahs of the Quran. Some people say it's about 29 surahs. And the meaning is known only to God. Sometimes some scholars have attempted to decipher these symbols they're like symbols and to give the meaning. But there are other scholars who say something which God has kept as a ghaib, as an unknown secret from us, we should not try to tamper with it. So Alif Lam Ra, these particular huruf muqatta'at, they are found at the beginning of 6 surahs which begin with Surah Yunus. And they start with Al-Ra, end with the Surah Al-Hijr, which is the 15th surah. And we find that in all these, Alif Lam Ra and then Tilka Ayatul Kitab al-Mubin. Kitab al-Mubin, Kitab is also mentioned along with it in all these 6 surahs. And as we already said, that this is the longest and most continuous single narrative. It is only one story in Surah Yusuf. And the Bible also mentions the story of Prophet Yunus or Joseph, but in spite of being similar, there are some very serious differences. And also we find that mostly in the Bible, when we have some similar stories, the differences can sometimes be very serious differences. And we just mentioned that Makkan idolaters, the Quraysh, were asked by Jewish scholars to inquire of the Prophet about Prophet Yusuf and his story. Some commentators think that this question was asked by the companions of the Prophet. They asked for the story of Prophet Yusuf. Many commentators think that the physical beauty of Yusuf a.s. was a reflection of divine beauty, patience in adversity, and the gift of the interpretation of dreams, that is, his spiritual and mystical powers. And later on, many mystical and literary romances were based on this story, and the Persian poem Yusuf and Zulekha by Abdul Rahman Jami is also very popular. Zulekha, the name of this woman who tried to seduce him, is not mentioned in the Quran, but by some oral tradition of somewhere they have managed to find the name Zulekha. And some interpret the story symbolically and spiritually, an account of the separation of the human soul from the divine origin, and then its return to it. And at the highest level of interpretation, it is seen as the exalted love story speaking about the relationship between the human lover and the divine beloved. So, moving on to the second verse, Inna anzalnahu Quranan Arabiyyan la'allakum taqilun. We have revealed the Arabic Quran so that you would understand it. So, since the Quran is being revealed to the Arabs, they are being told that there is nothing which is too difficult for you to understand because it has been revealed in Arabic. And this can also, the Quran and Arabian can also mean a discourse in the Arabic language. And since we know that it was originally addressed to the Arabs, they were being reminded that it is being made easy for them to understand. And the original Arabic retains its sanctity. For example, somebody once asked me, can we read the prayers, the salat, can we perform the salat by using a translation of the Arabic? And I said no, because the Arabic has its sanctity, the Arabic has its spiritual effects. Similarly, when we are doing a remembrance, a zikr, then also we use the original Arabic. Of course, this does not mean that translations are discouraged. Translations are encouraged, but no translation is expected to match the authenticity and the spirituality of the Arabic text. And this is why we have so many different translations. And every era, every age, every century, every time, people have tried to interpret the Quran according to the circumstances of that time. Nahnu naqussu alayka ahsan al-qasas bima awhayna ilayka hadha al-Quran wa in kunta min qablihi lamin al-ghafilin. We relate to you, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is being addressed here. We relate to you the best of stories, the ahsanul qasas, or the most beautiful of stories, through revelation in the Quran, even though before this you were unaware of it. That means the Prophet did not have too much knowledge about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. And beautiful commentators have explained does not only mean that the story in itself is beautiful, its language is also beautiful, its eloquence is beautiful, and the content as well. This is stated by Allama Razi. We know that Yusuf or Joseph, Prophet Joseph, was the son of Yaqub alayhi salam, that is Jacob, who was the son of Ishaq, that is Isaac, who was the son of Ibrahim. We know about two sons of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, and one was Ismail and one was Ishaq or Isaac. And in connection with this story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, Joseph, if you read the Bible, you find that the Bible says that, or God says in the Bible, that we will make the children of Ishmael, a great nation. That is, of course, people of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, we also read about a vision that he had in his childhood. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam had a vision or a dream in his childhood. This was like a portent of his future mission. And I think we'll read about it when we come to it. إِذْ قَالَ يُوسُفُ لِأَبِيهِ يَا أَبَتِ إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ أَحَدَ عَشَرَ كَوْكَبًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. That is, when Yusuf said to his father, "O my father, I saw 11 stars and the sun and the moon prostrating to me," that is, doing sajda to me. Now, some commentators say that the dreams of the prophets, any prophet, they are a kind of revelation from the divine. And this dream is also accepted as true. Now, he is relating his dream to his father, and the father is also a prophet, Yaqub alayhi salam, that is Jacob. And even though he does not give the exact interpretation right there, at least we don't find it in the Quran, but he knows that his son Yusuf is going to have a very elevated spiritual mission. So how does he react to this? He says, قال يا بني لا تقصص رؤياك على إخوتك فيكيدوا لك كيدا إن الشيطان للإنسان عدو مبين. So the father said, "Oh my son, do not relate your dream to your brothers." Now the brothers are also his sons, but he knows how jealous they are of their younger brother, or they might plot against you. Indeed, shaitan is the open enemy of human beings. So we know that whenever shaitan finds somebody weak in his resolve, then he attacks that person to make him do something that is wrong. In the Bible, the account of Yusuf alayhi salam, that is Joseph, is found in the book of Genesis, and chapter number 37, verse 10, where the dream is also mentioned. But the difference here is that two dreams are mentioned, and it is also said that Yusuf alayhi salam relates his dream to his brothers and they get extremely jealous. But this is not there in the Quran. وَكَذَلِكَ يَجْتَبِيكَ رَبُّكَ وَيُعَلِّمُكَ مِنْ تَعْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ وَيُتِمُّ نِعْمَتَهُ وَعَلَى آلِ يَعْقُوبَ كَمَا أَتَمَّهَا عَلَى أَبَوَيْكَ مِنْ قَبْلُ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. Your Lord will choose you, istabika, mushtaba, choose you and give you the knowledge of the interpretation of dreams. Now the interpretation of dreams in Arabic is ta'wil al-ahadith, and this is supposed to have a more wide meaning than just interpretation of dreams. It's can mean interpretation of dreams, of course, but also the explanation of events and the settling of disputes through wisdom, and also understanding the hidden meanings in scripture and the true nature of things, that is having mystical insight. So all these things, these qualities are the qualities of the prophets. So the father is telling his son that he's already predicting that your Lord will choose you. The prophets are supposed to be chosen, and they're chosen for great tasks in which the personal effort for the person is not involved. That is, in being chosen, there is no personal effort, but all along the way in their mission, they have to make a great personal effort, and will complete his favors upon you and the family of Yaqub. Favors are, like, of course, being chosen as a prophet is one of the greatest favors. And it is also said by commentators that Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was about 12 years old, maybe 12 or 13, at the time that this conversation is taking place between the father and son. In the Bible, the age is given as 17 years. So we know that the father has some mystical insight from this dream that his son will be chosen and maybe for a prophet. So the favors are blessings and favors in this world as well as the next. Verse number 7, the Arabic, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي يُوسُفَ وَإِخْوَتِهِ آيَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. In the story of Yusuf and his brothers are signs for the seekers. That means there are lessons to be learned from this story of Yusuf and his brothers. And one thing that we learn is the universal significance that we glean from the story and the futility of being envious. Also, it is said that Hazrat Yusuf's brothers and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's relatives are also there is a similarity in them. There is also hadith about envy, because the brothers here were very envious or jealous. Beware of envy, for it consumes good deeds as fire consumes wood. Now, I feel that envy is a natural kind of emotion or sentiment or instinct, you might even say. But anyone who is a little bit spiritually elevated or conscious of moral rules or moral values, that person will try to control his envy and jealousy. But when people do not or cannot control their jealousies, then that becomes a source of all the evil in the world. I think the basic source of all the evil in the world is jealousy and envy. Starting from Satan, who was jealous of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, and continuing up to this day. Even nations, when they go to war, the element of jealousy is there, for which reason they go to war and commit all kinds of destruction. So there are lessons, signs. Now you see the ayat, the word ayat is being used in a different sense here. We have been discussing this word in relation to the signs of God, in which, like for example, the verses of the Quran are also known as ayat. Then the miracles of the prophets are known as the ayat. The prophets themselves, their teachings are the ayat. And here, ayat lisailin, that is for the seekers who want to move on in their spiritual development. There are signs or lessons to be learned from the story of Yusuf and his brothers. إِذْ قَالُوا لِيُوسُفُ وَأَخُوهُ أَحَبُّ إِلَىٰ أَبِينَا مِنَّا وَنَحْنُ عُصْبَةٌ إِنَّ أَبَانَا لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. They said, Yusuf, these brothers are sitting and discussing this among themselves. Yusuf and his brother are more dear to our father than we are, even though we are a strong band. The word in Arabic for the strong band is usba, usbatun. Usba means a strong band of 10 to 40 men. And they were, of course, 10 of them. And they were a source of great strength for the family, because they did all the work. They looked after the cattle. They did whatever sowing they had to be done. And, whatever problem there was, they were there to solve it. So they said, we are more useful to our family. We are a strong band working together. How come our father loves this little boy who does nothing for the family? So they say that our father is in grave error. Dalalim mubin. Dalal here does not mean, is not applied here to the faith, because in the Quran, dalal can also mean having the wrong faith. Here it means that he is not balanced. He is not doing the right thing that he should do. Now, some people think that Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam, Jacob, loved Yusuf because he was the youngest, but actually he was not the youngest. Yusuf and Benjamin, who's known as Benjamin in the Bible, they were the two full brothers, and their mother was, I think, Rahil, known as Rachel in the Bible. So these two were real brothers, and Benjamin was the youngest of the brothers. If he had loved him because of being the youngest, If he had loved the youngest child, he should have loved Benjamin more than all the other brothers, but he did not. So other commentators think that this is because of the spiritual qualities of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, which were already obvious to his father and maybe not to everybody else. And also we cannot say that since Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam was so physically attractive and beautiful, that's why his father loved him, because parents, I think, love their children unconditionally. They do not love them more because they are beautiful. And in fact, if a child is handicapped, I feel that the parents love them even more. So he loved him because of his spiritual qualities, which were already obvious to him. Now I think we are on verse number 9. اقتلوا يوسف أو اطرحوه أرضا يخل لكم وجه أبيكم وتكونوا من بعده قوما صالحين. So these elder brothers, the 10 jealous step-brothers, are sitting there and having a kind of a discussion or maybe in a conference. So one of them suggests, kill Yusuf or abandon him in a faraway land so that your father will give undivided attention to you, that is to us, to the elder brothers. Thereafter you can become pious. So you see now, repenting or doing tawbah is one of the great virtues that have been taught to human beings. But if one plans to do something wrong, if one plans to commit a sin and says, after we have committed the sin, then we will do tawbah, that I think is not such a good idea. This reminds me of a young man I knew once who was a student at that time, and he said, there's nothing wrong in, committing all kind of corruption, because look at Mr. So-and-so. He was in such and such a department where he was getting bribes all the time. He was taking bribes all the time. And after his retirement, he gave up that kind of life and he joined a religious group, and he did tawbah and he became very pious, and I think that's the right thing to do. But I think if you are consciously and deliberately committing sin, then I think it's a serious matter. Of course, if one commits a sin or a wrong unintentionally and then does tawbah for it, then that is of course very acceptable. So these brothers thought that once they had removed Yusuf from the scene, then they would mend their relationship with their father, and they thought that all their problems would be solved. قال قائل منهم لا تقتلوا يوسف وألقوه في غيابات الجب يلتقطه بعض السيارة إن كنتم فاعلين. Said one of them, do not kill Yusuf. Throw him into the deep depths of a well. Perchance a group of travelers rescues him if you must do something. Now it is said that this one person, the one brother who is speaking in favor of Yusuf and who seems to have a kind heart, this is supposed to be their eldest brother. And some have given his name as being Shamun. So he says, do not kill him, just throw him in a well. And in those days, when there was a scarcity of water and there were travelers, there were caravans who were always looking for a well or some source of water. And when a group of travelers comes to that well, then they will rescue him. And they will take him away to wherever they are going, so we will not have to deal with him anymore. And this is what this group of brothers had called themselves. Now we are in verse number 11. So they accepted the suggestion of the elder brother, and they said, okay, we won't kill him, but we will remove him from our side by throwing him into a well. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تامنا على يوسف وإنا له لناصحون. So they said to their father, O our father, what is it with you that you do not trust us with Yusuf, when in fact we are his sincere well-wishers? Nasihun, that means they are sincere. Here, of course, they are being hypocritical because they are not sincere and their intentions are also not good. And it means that when they are saying that you do not trust us with Yusuf, that means they must have tried something earlier in which their father had not given in. So they are saying, why do you not trust us? This is like a continuous phrase. So they say, Arsilu ma'ana ghadan yarta wa yalab wa inna lahu lahafizun. Send him with us tomorrow, and also he will eat and play and will enjoy himself while we look after him. It was like a picnic that they had planned to go out of their city or wherever they were staying, out in the open. And they said he will also enjoy himself by playing and eating whatever he wants to eat. And we will look after him. Inna lahu lahafizun, that means we will be his keepers, we will protect him. So these brothers used to go to the pasture for a kind of picnic quite often. And this time they offered to take Yusuf along. Maybe they meant that now he's big enough that he can come with us. The spiritual interpretation of this is that since Hazrat Yaqub, the father, could not be without his beloved son for even a short while, similarly, the believers should not be forgetful of their divine beloved, that is, of God, for even a moment. And being separated is akin to heedlessness of God, while togetherness is akin to remembrance of God. This is by interpretation by Ali Ajiba, who always has a good spiritual interpretation. Now here, Arsalna Ma'ana Ghadan Yarta. Yarta is like, it includes a lot of things that one does to enjoy oneself, like racing, hunting, shooting with a bow and arrow, etc. So he said, we will do these things and he will do all these things with us and he will enjoy himself. Qala inni yazunani antasabu bihi wa akhafu an yakulahu az-zibu wa antum anhu ghafilun. And the father replied, I am afraid that if you take him with you, a wolf might devour him while you are unaware. So he has this premonition that, there are wolves in the jungle and you are busy with your affairs, with enjoying yourself, and a wolf might come and eat him up. So the father is feeling insecure about letting Yusuf go with the brothers, with his own sons. قَالُوا لَإِنْ أَكَلْهُ الزَّيْبُ وَنَحْنُ عُصْبَةٌ إِنَّا إِذًا لَخَاسِرُونَ. So they reply, if a wolf devours him when he is with us, a strong band, again that word is used here, usbatun, that is a strong band, a group that works together, then surely we are worthless. So he says, if 10 of us grown-up strong men working as a group cannot take care of this little boy, then we must be really worthless. And they are trying to promise to take care of him and trying to convince their father to let Yusuf go along with them. فَلَمَّا ذَهَبُوا بِهِ وَأَجْمَعُوا أَنْ يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَةِ الْجُبِّ فَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. So when they took him with them, so the father agreed and he let him go. So when they took him with them, they conspired to throw him into the dark depths of a well. So they decided to go especially to a place where there was a well nearby. And then it is said, we inspired him. Inspired whom? God inspired Yusuf. Oh Hena, the word Wahi is, we sent Wahi to Yusuf. Now Wahi is something which is an inspiration which is sent only to the prophets. So some commentators think that this was not a Wahi, it was an Ilham. Ilham is also an inspiration which is given to non-prophets who might be spiritually elevated. So some commentators say that prophethood was conferred on Yusuf at that time, but that is not a possibility because he was only 12 or 13 years old at that time. But it is said that God sent Jibreel alayhi salam to take care of him. You see, what the brothers did was to tie a rope around him and let him down into the well, and when he was deep enough, then they cut the rope. And Jibreel alayhi salam came, it is said, and he spread his wings under him and saved him. And also, through Jibreel alayhi salam, Hazrat Yusuf, even in his childhood, was given this message that one day you will inform them of this deed, for they do not realize. That means that he will one day talk to them from a position of strength. And it is also said now this is, of course, gave him great solace, the use of the child. But it is also said by some commentators that if the brothers had realized that he was going to be a prophet, then they would have tried to make sure that they would have killed him. Many prophets have been killed before, so he could have also been killed. وَجَاءُوا أَبَاهُمْ إِشَاءً يَبْكُونَ. So they returned to their father at night. Yabkun is weeping, crying, wailing. And they were again being hypocritical. They were pretending to be very grievous. They were pretending to be really upset. And they said, that, so of course the father wanted to know what had happened. قالوا يا أبانا إنا ذهبنا نستبق وتركنا يوسف عند متاعنا فأكله الذئب وما أنت بمؤمن لنا ولو كنا صادقين. They said, "Oh, our father, we went racing and left Yusuf near our things, and a wolf devoured him." So they left the little child to guard their things, and they went racing and doing other things which they wanted to enjoy. So a wolf came and devoured him. You will not believe in what we say, even though we are telling the truth. So when the brother said, you will not believe in what we are saying, it means they did not have a good record with their father, because this was not the first time that they were doing something and saying something which the father did not really believe. So they did not have a good record in the father's eyes. Now, commentators gave a lot of details about this whole venture, and which are not in the Quran, so we don't really have to accept them, and they're not really needed. But they give descriptions of how once the brothers had taken Yusuf out of the sight and reach of their father, then they started mistreating him right away, like beating him and punching him and stuff like that. And then they said that you will not, when they came back, they said, we know you will not believe in us, but this is what has happened, and we are telling the truth. وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ قَالَ بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَىٰ مَا تَصِفُونَ. So they brought his shirt stained with false blood. Now also there are various interpretations of how they got hold of the shirt. They took it off even before they let him down into the well. And they brought it stained with false blood. So they had to prove that he had been eaten by an animal, a wild animal. So they slaughtered in some accounts you find that a goat was slaughtered. This is mentioned in the Bible. And in some accounts you find that a deer or a lamb was slaughtered. But whatever it was not the blood of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. And also another detail which commentators give is that the shirt was not torn from anywhere. The shirt was whole except for the blood that they had splattered on it. So the father said, in fact, your conscience has made this act seem attractive to you. This heinous crime that you have committed, your bad conscience has made it seem attractive to you. We come across the words zuyana shaitanu. That means the shaitan made something look attractive to the person who's committing the wrong. And this is exactly what has happened, that they think they are doing something really beneficial to themselves and that they are not committing a great crime. Their anfusahum means their nafs, that is. Nafs has been translated in many ways, but here it means their conscience or their ego. And then what does the father say? He says, I know that you're not telling the truth, but now I will do Sabrun Jamilun. Sabrun Jamil is the utmost of patience. It has also been called the highest form of patience and forbearance. Or also it's in Jamil, the word Jamil means beauty. It has also been called a beautiful form of patience. Now this is a patience in which one does not mention one's grief to anybody except to God. You just keep praying to God and you keep putting up with that grief without mentioning it to anybody else. This is why it's called the best form of patience. Now some commentators say that they had taken off the shirt before throwing him into the well, and others think that the shirt, there's a very detailed story of how they had tied the shirt around his neck, and then Jibreel alayhi salam came and took off that shirt and made him wear it. So this really doesn't make any difference to the story. For Sabrun Jamilun, we have learned that it is the best form or the most beautiful form of patience. Wallahul musta'anu ala ma tasifun. That is, he says that I will seek istainu, we use that word istainu bis sabr. Musta'an also means I will seek God's help regarding what you are saying. For this matter, I will just keep praying to God, I will not talk to you about it anymore. And also it is said that he wept so much, Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam wept so much that he lost his eyesight. وَجَاءَتْ سَيَّارَةٌ فَأَرْسَلُوا وَارِدَهُمْ فَأَدْلَى دَلْبَهُ قال يا بشرى هذا غلام وأسروه بداعة والله عليم بما يعملون. Then came a group of travelers who sent their water drawer to draw water from the well. So a water drawer was always walking in front at a small difference from the caravan. It was a small distance from the caravan. And when he found water somewhere, then of course he informed the whole caravan. And that is where they came and camped near the water. So this water drawer came and he let down his bucket into the well. And some commentators say that Yusuf alayhi salam caught hold of the bucket. And when this man pulled it out, he saw that there was a beautiful young lad holding onto the bucket. And he says, what good news. Here's a young boy. And then they concealed him. They concealed him like a precious commodity. And God knew what they were doing. So in those days, one could get hold of anybody and then sell him in the slave market, make him a slave themselves, or sell him off in a slave market. This is what had happened to Hazrat Rabia Basri, that she and her two sisters were walking alone and there were times of famine. They were looking for food and somebody got hold of Rabia Basri. There's another story that he offered to buy her from the two sisters. But whatever it is, even free persons, free people could be made slaves with any excuse. But we find in the Quran, in Surah Muhammad, that the practice of making slaves was banned in a way. We'll discuss it in more detail when we come to it. But slaves could be made only during war. People who had come into the field to fight, they could be turned into slaves, and then of course they were either ransomed, or they were exchanged, or they were let to go out of benevolence. So وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَةٍ وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. Then they sold him for the paltry price of a few dirhams, but they were not really interested in him. Now some commentators say that this is about the brothers, that the next day or whenever they came back to that place, to that well, and there they followed the tracks of the caravan, and they said, this is our slave, please give him back, give him back to us. And they also said, okay, if you want to keep him, just give him some money. And it is said that they sold him for a paltry price. Now, other commentators think that it is actually said about the people of the caravan who sold him for a paltry price for a few dirhams. Some commentators even mention in the Tafsir Ibn Abbas, you find that the price is also mentioned, just 20 dirhams. And a runaway slave is supposed to have lesser value than a proper slave whose master is selling him. So these brothers went on the third day, caught up with them, and they sold him off to that same caravan. This is an opinion of some of the commentators. Some commentators think that paltry price or a low price means that was a low price for Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, because first of all he was a free person. Secondly, he was going to be a prophet. So it was a very low price for him. And he was also a beautiful person to look at. And according to Allama Razi, says that this is about the people of the caravan who sold him in Egypt, and they sold him for a paltry price because they were in a hurry to sell him off before the rightful owner came and claimed him. Then they sold him for the paltry price of a few dirhams, and they were really not interested in him. They sold him for 20 dirhams. So anyway, whoever sold him, Prophet Yusuf was sold off as a child. وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِنْ مِصْرَ لِأَمْرَأَتِهِ اكْرَمِي مَثْوَهُ عَسَىٰ أَنْ يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَنُعَلِّمَهُ مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ وَاللَّهُ غَالِبٌ عَلَىٰ أَمْرِهِ وَلَٰكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So said the one who bought Yusuf in Egypt. Who is the one who bought Yusuf in Egypt? He is later, not here, but later in the Quran, he is called the Aziz. Now this means, Aziz is means powerful. And it has been explained that he was the like a chief minister after the king, or the prime minister, or the one who's taking care of the most important affairs of the kingdom. And his name has been given in the Bible as Potiphar, and other people have mentioned his name as being Kitfir. In the Quran, we only have his title, Al-Aziz. So when he came home with his new precious commodity, that is Yusuf alayhi salam, he said to his wife to keep him honorably, ikrami, keep him honorably, and also maswahu, that is, give him a good place to, that means that he must have a lot of servants and they must be given facilities or perks according to their rank, even the servants. So he said, keep him honorably, and he might be useful to us, or we might even adopt him as a son. That means they did not have any child. Now, this Potiphar, or the Aziz, is supposed to be, according to the Bible, it is supposed to be the captain of Pharaoh's guards. And this was a very powerful position. Some think that in other commentaries we find that he looked after, or he oversaw the treasury of the king, of that kingdom. And later on we also find that Yusuf alayhi salam also became the keeper of the warehouses of the kingdom. So God says that, these brothers had just abandoned him in the well, but we brought him to a place where he would get an honorable position in the land, so that we might teach him the interpretation of dreams and events. Now, this is what the father had foretold earlier, that God will teach you the interpretation of dreams, that is Ta'wil al-Ahadith, which I mentioned does not only apply to the interpretation of dreams, but it applies to a lot of things. That is the knowledge of future events, and having knowledge of the mysteries, that is having mystical insight, and also the adab, that is the manners or etiquette needed in submitting to God. So all these things come under Ta'wil al-Ahadith. And God was in full control over his affairs, but most people do not know. That is, human beings in this world, sometimes they start thinking that we have control over this matter, but then suddenly all the tables are turned and the things change at once. So then they realize that everything was not in their power. So God was in full control, means that even though the brothers intended to kill him, God willed to raise him in rank and being next only to the king. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So when he reached maturity, we bestowed on him wisdom and knowledge. This is how we reward the virtuous. So we know that prophethood is bestowed on a person when he reaches a kind of maturity. And here it is said that while he was living in the house of the Aziz, he became mature, and God bestowed on him wisdom and knowledge, hukman and ilma. Hukman means wisdom and the ability to judge. And since these qualities combined with knowledge and ilm are the basic requirements of prophethood, many scholars have concluded that prophethood was bestowed on Yusuf alayhi salam at this point. Now, there is a hadith about the looks, the physical looks of Yusuf alayhi salam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam has said, reported to have said, that Yusuf was given half of beauty. That is, half of all the beauty that there is in the world. That is one way of expressing that he was extremely attractive and beautiful. Normally one doesn't talk of beauty when one talks of men. You say handsome or good looking, but he was so extremely good looking that he is called beautiful. وَرَابَتْهُ الَّتِي هُوَ فِي بَيْتِهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابَ وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ رَبِّي أَحْسَنَ مَثْوَايَ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. So she in whose house he was, that is the wife of the Aziz, whom commentators call Zulaykha, which is not found in the Quran, she started to seduce him in order to attract him to herself. And since he sort of ignored her, one day she locked the doors. He used to come into the house to take care of various chores. And she locked the doors and said to him, "Come to me." He said, "May God protect me. My Lord has kept me with honor. The unjust cannot prosper." So this is what I had said earlier when we were discussing doing the introduction, that this the fact that a woman was trying to attract a man and trying to give herself up to him, this is something which would be very difficult for any male, especially a young male, to resist. But here we see Hazrat Yusuf's strong character in this regard, and he has already acquired his moral values. And he says, may God protect me, my Lord. Now, some commentators say by Lord he means the master of the house, who is also his Lord. But some commentators think that this means God. So my Lord has kept me with honor. The unjust cannot prosper. He means that I cannot betray my Lord. In whatever sense he's using the term, he says that I cannot betray either the master and I cannot even betray God. So he cannot be ungrateful and betray God. We find that even though he was a child, he has these moral qualities because some commentators say that the prophets are trained by God. They are given their values by God, even if no one else has taught them. I think we'll keep it up to here. This is verse number 23, and inshallah we will carry on from verse number 24 next time. If there are some questions, we can take them quickly. All right, since there are no questions, we can just do our dua. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azaban nar wa adkhilna al jannata ma'al abrar ya azizu ya ghaffar ya rabbil alameen bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Ameen summa ameen. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Walal akhiratu khairul laka minal ula. Ameen. Salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Nabiyil Ummi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa barik wa sallim. Thank you everyone for joining us, and inshallah we'll see you next. Jazakallah to you as well.